Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns. Hello, this is Kim Howerton with Keto Life Support, and welcome to episode 199. Inspiration versus desperation. So whenever we have goals in life, we can talk about motivation. We can talk about the drive towards something we want or the push away from something we don't. Punishment is a form of motivation. It's trying to mold our behavior, and so are rewards. Motivation can be internal or external, something that is self-controlled or something that comes from outside. Maybe you broke the law. Now you're on probation. There is external motivation because you know if you do that thing again, you will be put in prison, right? You're being externally motivated. You're being essentially threatened with punishment should you not continue on the right path. Let's talk about it in terms of weight loss. We will often have a moment of internally motivated experience. We feel it. We're like, I feel motivated. I am committing to a path towards my goals. But often that kind of momentary motivation is fleeting. We know, right? You might be motivated one day and not the next. And what elicits that motivated experience, in my opinion, comes from two categories. And it's not just my opinion. I've heard this for years. I think it's part of 12-step. I don't actually remember where I heard it from, but it's very well known. Inspiration versus desperation. So let me give you some examples. In terms of weight loss, let's say you met somebody, they look amazing, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did you do? I'm so inspired by your change. I want it too. Let's talk about before and after pictures. Those are an example of something that's inspiring you, perhaps, right? You look at the after and you think, yes, I want that. That is inspiration, something that motivates you through positivity. We can look at it that way. Then we've got desperation. That's usually the avoidance one, right? Let's say you get diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and you're like, I got to turn this around. I'm not willing to suffer the consequences I know are coming my way. I'm desperate to change. And so that's a different kind of form of motivation. We'll tell you, sadly, the one that is usually more compelling is desperation. Inspiration makes us feel positive, feel good, but it tends to be more fleeting. Why is that? Well, when we're moved by desperation, we're living with a consequence we don't want. And that acts as pain. And that pain pushes us to get out of pain. Unfortunately, there's more ways to get out of pain. Often you can stop thinking about it. You can distract yourself. You can go further into your addiction as a way to numb the pain. So just because it is a more powerful motivator doesn't mean it always gets us to the end result. As I've talked about many times, motivation waxes and wanes. It comes and it goes. And we often need to take advantage of the times when we feel motivated to then come up with a plan that no longer relies upon motivation, because that looks like commitment. Because not every day, you're not going to be identified with your goals every day, right? You're not going to be like on point. There's nothing in my way. The path is clear. I have no distractions. Like that is just a pipe dream. It's not like that all the time. There are distractions, things take you off track, things to, pretend that there are other priorities that are coming in the way, right? And you're like, if you don't have a commitment to your outcome, then you're not going to stay the course, because motivation is the weakest of the items getting you there. It is the push off the side of the pool when you're swimming, but in the middle of the pool where you're doing the breaststroke and there's no more wind behind your back, and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Because my alternatives are drowning, right? You need a system. You need to know how to swim, and you need to know how many laps you're doing, and you need to know what is the path forward. You need the system, you need the structure. But in terms of inspiration versus desperation, those are things you can know, you can touch on when you need to go back to the root that got you on the path. What is your why? Where are you going? What is your ultimate goal? And so having regular check-ins while you're doing the things, right? While you're in the systems, coming back to reaffirming what got you motivated in the first place, what got you moving. It matters, and it's useful, and it's helpful. But always remember, you won't feel the same all 24 hours of the day. So your motivation is not reliable, but your systems should be. All right, guys, that was a quick one. I will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.